Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Among the Hidden. Luke spent practically every second of the next 3 days either reliving his secret visit to Jen or planning the next one. The first day, a government inspector came out to examine the gardener's crop, so Luke stayed in his room the entire day. The second day it rained, and Dad spent the morning doing the bookwork in the house. The third day, Dad was back in the fields, but when Luke cracked open the back door promptly at 9 a.m. and daringly flipped on the light switch, he got no answering flash from Jen's house. Maybe the clocks in our house were slow. He left the light on whole for 15 minutes, terrified the whole time that somebody besides Jen might see it. Finally, heart-sick, he switched off and climbed with shaky legs back to his room. What if something had happened to Jen? What if she was sick? Dying even, alone in her house? What if she had been caught or turned in? Just from the little time Luke had spent with her, he could tell. She took a lot of risks. It never occurred to him that knowing another person would give you something else to worry about. He steadied himself by leaning against the wall at the top of the stairs and reminded himself of less frightening possibilities. Maybe one of the parents just were out running errands, not working, so they were going to be home soon. Maybe he tried to think of another safe reason Jen hadn't signaled him to come. He had so much trouble picturing her ordinary life that his imagination failed him. He found out the next day when he risked a dash to Jen's house as soon as Jen answered the signal. "Where were you?" he asked instantly. "When? Yesterday?" She yawned, sliding the door shut behind him. "Did you kind of come over?" "Oh, I'm sorry. Mom had a free day and made me go shopping." Luke gaped at her. "Shopping? You went out?" Jen nodded nonchalantly. "But I didn't see you leave," Luke protested. Jen looked at him as if she seriously wondered if he had a brain. "Of course not. I was hiding. The back seat of our car is hauled out. Dad had it custom built." "You went out?" Luke repeated in awe. "Well, it's not like I saw anything until we got to the mall. 2 hours of riding in the dark is not my idea of fun. I hate it." "But at the mall, you got out? You didn't have to hide?" Jen laughed at his amazement. "Mom got me a forged shopping pass a long time ago. Supposedly I'm her niece. It's good enough to convince the store clerks, but if the population police ever found me in a roadside stop, I'd be dead. There you have it, my mother's priority. Shopping is more important than my life." Luke shook his head and sat down on the couch because his knees were shaky. "I didn't know," he said. "I didn't know thirds could do that. What if Mother and Dad got him a forged pass? For a minute he could almost picture it. They could hide him under burlap bags in the pickup truck under bed until they got into town. Everybody in town knew Mother and Dad. Everybody knew Mother and Dad had only had 2 sons, Matthew and Mark." "You went to the city," he said. "Well, yeah," Jen said. "You don't see any malls around here, do you?" "What was it like?" Luke almost whispered. "Boring," Jen said. "Really, really boring. Mom wanted to buy me a dress. Who knows why. So we went to one store after another, and I had to try on all these dresses that scratched and pricked and poked me. And then she made me get a bunch of bras." "Oh, sorry," she said when Luke brushed a deep red. "I guess you don't talk much about bras at your house." "Matthew and Mark do sometimes, when they're being dirty," Luke said. "Well, bras aren't dirty," Jen said. "They're just torture devices invented by men or mothers or something." "Oh," Luke said, looking down. "But anyway," Jen said with a bounce that propelled her off the couch, "I checked you out on the computer and you're alright. You don't exist. Not officially anyway. So you're safe." And hearing Jen say so flippantly, "You don't exist," made Luke feel funny. "How do you know I'm safe?" he interrupted. "Fingerprints," Jen said. When Luke gave her a blank look, she explained, "My brother Braun went through this phase where he wanted to be a detective. Not that he would ever be smart enough for it. And I remembered he still had a fingerprinting kit. So I dusted your fingerprints on the things you touched, just like the TV. Got a really good print off the wall. Now I scanned into the computer, linked to the national file of fingerprints, and voila! I discovered your fingerprints don't exist, so neither do you. Officially. She made a mocking face for emphasis. Luke wanted to say, the Poppy police can't find me because of what you did, can they? But he understood so little of what she explained that he didn't think it would help to ask anything. And Jen was already on to the next thought. And anyhow, you seem trustworthy. So, now that I know you're safe, I can tell you about the rally and show you our secret chat rooms and everything. Jen was leaving the room, so I had to follow her just to hear the rest of her sentence. Want something to eat or drink? She asked, hesitating at the door to the kitchen. I was so surprised I forgot to be a good hostess the last time. What'll it be? Soda? Potato chips? But those are illegal, Luke protested. He remembered reading something about junk food in one of the books in the ad and asking his mother about it. She explained to him that it was something people used to eat all the time until the government shut down the factories that made it. She wouldn't tell him why, but as a special treat, she brought him out a bag of chips she had been saving for years and shared them, just with him. They were salty and hard to chew. Luke had pretended to like them only because Mother seemed to want him to. Yeah, well, we're illegal, so why shouldn't we enjoy ourselves? Jen said, thrusting a bowl of chips at him. To be polite, Luke took one chip, and then another, and then another. These potato chips were so good, he had to hold himself back from grabbing them by the handful. Jen stared at him. Do you get hungry sometimes? She asked in a low voice. No, Luke said in surprise. Some shadowed children do because they don't have food ration cards and the rest of their family doesn't share. She said, opening her refrigerator, and was bigger than every other appliance in the gardener's kitchen put together. My family can get all the food we want, but she looked at him in a way that once made him conscious of his ragged clothes. How does your family get food for you? The question puzzled Luke. The same way they get it for themselves, he said. We grow it. We have a garden. I used to work in it a lot before, And then we have hogs, or we used to. And I guess sometimes we trade a butchered hog for someone else's butchered steer, so we have beef. Those were all shadowy transactions in Luke's mind. He had to strain his brain to remember overhearing Dad or Matthew report to Mom. Ready to cook some steak? Johnson's up Libertyville and wants some ham. Jen dropped a plastic bottle full of brown liquid. You eat meat? She said. Sure, don't you? Luke asked. Sure, when Dad can get it, Jen said, bending to pick up the bottle. She poured a glass full for Luke and one for herself. Both drinks fizzled and bobbled. Even his clout isn't that great. The government's been trying to force everyone, even the barons, to become vegetarian. Why? Luke asked. Jen handed him a glass. Something about vegetables being more efficient, she said. Farmers have to use a lot more land to produce 1 pound of meat than to produce 1 pound of, what's it called? Soybeans. Luke wrinkled his nose at the thought of eating soybeans. I don't know, he said slowly. We always feed our hogs the grain we sell because it didn't meet government standards. But since government's made us get rid of our hogs, Dad just lets the grain rot in the field. Really? Jen grinned as if he had just announced the overthrow of the government. She thumped him on the back just as he took his first sip of soda. Between the bubbly drink and her enthusiastic pounding, Luke started coughing. Jen didn't seem to know. See, I told you you'd be a good help. I'm going to post that on a bulletin board right now. Wait. Luke sputtered between coughs. He didn't know what she was talking about, but he couldn't let her get his family in trouble. Chased her down the hall, catching her up as she was sliding into the chair in the front of the computer. She switched it on, and it made a beep 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 sound like Luke had carefully heard the last time. Luke stood by the side, carefully out of sight of the screen. It's not gonna bite you, Jen said. Grab a chair and sit down. Luke inched back. But the government, he said. The government's incompetent and stupid, Jen said. Get it? Believe me. They were watching through my computer screen. I know by now. Meekly, Luke pulled over a padded chair and sat down. He watched Jen type in, if the government let farmers feed their animals the grain they can't sell, there'd be more meat. Luke was relieved that she hadn't mentioned his family, but unless the government was spying on them, he couldn't understand what difference it made for her to write that. Where'd that go? He asked as the words disappeared. Who's gonna see it? I put it on the Department of Agriculture bulletin board, and anyone with a computer can find it now. Maybe a government worker with half a brain will see it and actually think for the first time this decade. But Luke squinted in confusion. Why does it matter? Jen fixed her gaze on Luke. You don't know, do you? She said. You don't know why they passed the population law. No, Luke admitted. It's all about food, Jen said. The government was scared we'd all run out of food if the population kept growing. That's why they made you and me illegal, to keep people from starving. Luke suddenly felt doubly guilty for the potato chips he was cramming into his mouth. He swallowed hard and lowered his hands to his lap, instead of back into the chip bowl. So if I didn't eat it, my food would go to someone who was legal, Luke said. But his family, that would just be Matthew and Mark, and they were hardly starving. Matthew was even starting to sport the same roll of fat around his waist that Dad had. Then Luke remembered the tramp from long ago saying, I ain't ate in 3 days. Was that Luke's fault? Jen laughed. Oh, don't look so worried, she said. That is what the government thinks, but they're wrong. My dad said there's plenty of food, it's just not distributed right. That's why we've got the Stop the Population law. That's why they got to recognize you and me and all the other shadow kids. That's why we're going to have this rally. As ignorant as he was, Luke could tell from the way she said it that the rally was really important. Can you tell me about the rally now? He asked humbly. Yes, Jen said. She pushed away from the computer and twirled on the chair. Hundreds of us, all the shadow children I could track down, are going to march on the government and protest. We'll go right to the president's house. We won't leave them alone until they give us the same rights as everybody else has. Just my luck, Luke thought. I finally meet another shadow child, and she's absolutely crazy. And, Jen said, as bubbly as shaking soda, you can come too. Won't that be great? Chapter 18. Luke said he couldn't look at Jen's triumphant grin. I don't think I thought about how terrifying it was just running back and forth between his house and Jen's. Even this morning, on his third run from their yards, his heart had pounded so hard he'd wonder if it could burst from fear. And in the yard at least, he was sure, or sure as he could be, that no one was watching. How could Jen think he would dare go in public, where he knew people would see him, people in the government, no less, and say, I am a third child. I want to be treated like everyone else. Scared? Jen said softly. Luke could only nod. Jen turned back to the computer. Well, I am too, she said matter-of-factly. She typed something in, then looked at Luke. Some, but don't you think it'll be a relief? No more hiding, no more pretending. Just being free. Luke wondered if he'd always misunderstood the meaning of the word relief. Jen's rally sounded like his worst nightmare. You can think about it, she said. You don't have to decide anything today. Now, ready to chat? Luke looked back at the computer screen with rows of words unfurling. Carlos, it's 1:05 here. I'm just gonna show you this part. This is like part of the computer chat. Luke read the words Jen was typing. I'm right here. And Sean, I do so get up early. I just don't always choose to see you first thing. And Carlos, what's wrong? Is there a sweat in your eyes? There's only one R in sarcastic. But she hit another key, and the words appeared right up along with everyone else's. They were quickly followed by another line. From Sean. Good morning to you too, Jen. Glad to see you're still among the living. Jen typed quickly. Not just among the hidden. Not the same thing at all. Then she sent it. What's this? Luke said. Some sort of game? He remembered Jen mentioning a Carlos before and had no idea who she was. Were this some sort of computer imaginary friends? Carlos, Sean, Yolanda, they're all third children. Sean's even got a brother, Pat, who's a fourth child. This is how I talk to them. Luke watched the next line of type appear. Carlos, thanks for the sympathy, Jen. But how? Luke asked, still doubtful. Oh, you know, it's the net, Jen said. If you got a spare hour or two sometime, I'll give you the technical gobbledygook to explain it. All I care about is that it works. I'd die without someone to talk to. She was typing even as she talked. Luke craned his head to see what she wrote. Guess what? That kid I told you about, Luke, is here with me. Quickly, 3 "Hi, Luke's" appeared on the screen. Luke fought down panic. But the government, he said, they'll find me. Jen playfully slugged his arm. Chill, okay? Nobody from the government can get in this chat room. We all use the password. Just their children know it. And anyhow, even if someone read this, what do they know? Just somewhere in the world there's a kid named Luke. Big deal. But they can trace you through the computer and then find me too. Luke's heart was still pounding. Look, if they traced people through the computer or the chat room, wouldn't they have found me a long time ago? Luke tried to think clearly. Their parents, he said, you said they bribe people, so you're safe, but mine... Jen was shaking her head. No, I'm not safe, she said grimly. Even my parents couldn't bribe the population police if they found me. Maybe to keep them from looking, but not even that. The population police got some ridiculous big reward for every third illegal they find. Why do you think I hide it all? Why do you think we have to have the rally? Everybody ought to be safe, and nobody should have to use bribes just to walk down the street or go to the mall or take a ride in a car. Luke glanced back at the computer screen, where the conversation continued. How did all those people find the password? He asked. How did you? Well, I created the chat room, so I made it up, Jen said. And I know a couple other Shadow kids, and I got my parents and their parents to get the password to them, and some of those kids spread the word to other kids they knew. Last time I counted, I had contact with 800 kids. Luke shook his head. He didn't even think his parents knew that many people. So what's the password, he asked. Free, Jen said. It's free. Okay, so that's the end of that.